Okay, welcome back to another episode of Words That Kill. And today, my guest is author JMD Reid, and he's here to talk about killing characters, of course, but killing characters with poison. So I'm going to turn it over to him now and let him introduce himself. So take it away.
Hi, I am JMD Reid, or you can call me James. I am a fantasy author. I write epic and dark fantasy. I have two full book series published on Amazon, and the third one is just getting underway.
My new series, Shadow of the Dragon, is heading into that sort of sword and sorcery area.
I'll start off with the basic questions I ask everybody, and that's how do you go about crafting a killer? And specifically when you're crafting a poisoner, is there a different mindset?
When you're crafting a killer, it's first off is like why do they kill? So that was the first goal, and so I've done a poisoner. He was an assassin for a religious organization, and it was very important to the religious organization that their hands were clean of the crime, that they can never be traced back to them. So poisons, especially ones that made it look like they died of natural causes, was in their arsenal. They didn't want people to know they were poisoned, but they also wanted to eliminate them, to end their heresy, as it were. So the poisoner, I think, is someone that doesn't want to be caught. They want to hurt you when you're at your vulnerable, by poisoning your food, which we all need, And so it's kind of a sort of a sneaky mindset, whereas like another killer might just, think about like where to ambush you and how to strike at your vulnerable points or stuff like that,
Yeah, so that actually leads nicely into the next question is how do you craft the death scene? Is there a specific atmosphere you're going for? Do you ramp up the tension, the suspicions? How do you go about that when you're using poison?
Oh yeah, it's like it's a ticking time bomb. So you have them like first you have the poisoner. They like you establish what they poisoned, and then you like show the food being brought to the character. In my case, the wrong person is the one that ends up getting poisoned, and so like it going in, and the poisoner is like there handing them the food, and and they're like they can't say anything as they're like the wrong person. The person they don't want to get poisoned is the one that ends up doing it. So there's a lot of tension, and like you, the reader, know like, oh no, don't eat that, right? That's gonna kill you, and then they do, and then you're like, what now? How is this gonna play out? So, yeah, you want to build that tension. You want to build that anticipation, the reader, that nervousness that a character might die. How is the author going to save them, or is there no saving the character? You want to have that mystery, keep them reading, keep them engaged.
Yeah, I would think that would also lead into consequences, even if you got the right person poisoned, of the characters surviving, the suspicions and various things like that. So how do you follow up to the poisoned death?
Yeah, well, there was suspicion. So both times I used poisons in that series, there was it sort of the neither one, they weren't ever supposed to come off as poisoning, but the person who poisoned the wrong person, that really affected them because that was sort of like kind of hit them at what they were doing because they were acting out of jealousy. They were being a catspaw to the main assassin at that point, who just like, here, you can get rid of your romantic rival with this poison, and then the girl you like is the one that gets poisoned instead. And so it kind of really like exposed the character to himself as who he is, as he reacts to like allowing the person to eat the poison instead of saying something. So it kind of just exposed to themselves just how loathing of a character they are, and it kind of sent the spiral that sent the character off into a completely different direction. And as for the first time the poisoning, it was it was sort of like after the event where like characters were like, there's a lot of suspicious things going on, and they start to put the pieces together and realize that he was poisoned as opposed to just got food poisoning like they thought, because he survived. He wasn't supposed to survive. There's a reason in the story why he survived. That was like he shouldn't have survived, but he did. But so they just like took it off of food poisoning or something, right? But and that assassin, he was just on his mission. He's focused. He doesn't care about collateral damage. Just as long as he gets his mark and doesn't expose his church, And so his is more a story about just desperation as his attempts keep failing, and he has to go to more and more extremes to try to assassinate the character.
To escape his dark mistakes, Oben must wield his magical blade again. Life has gone wrong for Oben. Once a respected palace guard, now he sells his sword as a bandit. Trapped by his mistakes, he has no hope. Until one young woman sees more in him. Avina, passionate and headstrong, has no patience for bullies. Dedicated to healing, she struggles to escape her own bleak past. In Oben, she sees a chance for them to both escape. Together in Cash, a city of poverty and vice, the two must find trust in the other to protect those they care about. Dark sorcerers, underworld crime bosses, and brutal bandits scheme to use and destroy them. Can they polish clean their stained souls?
Okay, so when you're working with poison, how do you deal with the availability of it, especially in a fantasy novel, where a lot of poisons would be from natural sources, I would assume.
Yeah.
So, are they readily available? Are they rare? How do you go about that?
Well, this assassin church, they cultivate their poison, so like they already have, like, they make them out of a flower that's toxic. So they know how to make their poisons. So they make their own poisons. They know how to source them. Like any sort of herbal medicine, you could kill someone with poison. There's a lot of ways to like this. What could be beneficial in small doses can kill in large doses. And so if you just need to know like what you're doing, and then you can be a poisoner.
So, what are your feelings on using exotic poisons? Do you prefer something readily available, or would you prefer to use something kind of rare and strange?
Well, for my writing, I try to do things sort of kind of grounded. So, the poison might be rare in some parts of the world, but it's just like wherever the plant grows that they're using might be common somewhere, might not be common elsewhere. And like I said, this order was all about using poisons that mimic natural diseases and stuff. So, they stuff that make it look like you had like like you had like a sickness that some people could get, and then you just died. So they don't want people to think you were ever poisoned. It's kind of how their goal is. So I guess more exotic stuff maybe would be the case for them.
Yeah, so it would be a bit like using something like foxglove to induce a heart attack in a real
basically.
world.
Yeah, it's kind of that inspiration. I've also used like chlorine gas as a chemical poison, like to just attack an area and disable people, and I researched it, like how do you make chlorine gas, and for modern technology, and so it was a fascinating study to get into.
Okay, can you share a few tidbits?
Well,
Without actually giving the recipe, because we don't want people going to make it, but
well, you can mine like potassium chlorate is just mineable, and so you just need to get the chlorine out of it. You just need to separate them. It's been a while since I've done the research on this, but you can. But there's a way to do it with chemistry. Like we invented it back in the 1800s. Where they invented bleach basically to bleach clothing, and so they figured it out back then. And then I use it actually to make an explosive thing. There's something called pot crate, which is you take potassium muriate, which is a potassium is a potassium sulfate. I don't remember exactly what the chemical is, but it's used to make blasting caps in handguns. It's used as explosives, and so one of the things it needs is chlorine. So that's kind of how I learned how to make chlorine gas. Because if you boil chlorine, it will turn into like crystals, and then you can mix that with potassium muriate and make coke.
okay, so you also have a magic system in your book. So do you mix magic and poisons? Do you make magical poisons, or is it separate?
So with the chlorine gas, I used a magic item to diffuse it rapidly through the atmosphere. We have this stuff for modern weapons, to disperse a gas really rapidly through an area. So I used a magical equivalent to that worked in the magic system. but nothing like mixing the magic into making to the poison. I didn't have magic systems that could work that way.
It is two different gem grown as one, she continued. Have you ever seen anything like this, father? No, I have not, child, Dulain said, a tremble to his voice. This may well predate the shattering. A chill ran through Avina. The shattering, when Ullum, the god of the seven colors, had confronted his nemesis, the Black. The cataclysmic clash of energies was said to have broken lands far to the east and almost destroyed the world. Ullum, let your seven colors polish us with your purity and cleanse the Black from us, whispered Avina beneath her breath. Growing up in a church-run orphanage had stamped piety on the young woman. Truly, father? Truly, he said. A smile spread across the old man's plump face. The soft hands grasped the strange jewel sheen they had uncovered. Bits of dirt still clung to the entwined emerald and amethyst. The green and purple gems spiraled around each other in a helix pattern, while threads of gold were embedded in the jewels. It was like they grew around the metal wiring, thought Avina. She was familiar with jewel machines, commonly called jewel sheens. One didn't study beneath one of their greatest pioneers without picking up a thing or two. I didn't even know an emerald or an amethyst could get this big, Avina said, her heart pounding a rapid beat. She trembled as she stared at the object sitting on the work table. At 1 cubit tall, a little longer than the length of her arm from elbow to fingertip, the jewel was massive. The largest is the topaz staff of Roydon, but that is an artifact from before the shattering, much like this and the ruby and that ruby outside, said Dulain. The largest natural gem is a diamond the size of a pig's heart. I saw it visiting Ondor's capital. Imagine the light that could be fashioned from it. What do you think this is? Avina asked. What purpose could this have been used for? It is such a large gem. Emerald and amethyst mixed, Dulain murmured, his hand sliding through his thinning, graying hair. Preservation and protection together. There were 7 colors of Ullum, each representing 7 virtues, and each had a gemstone associated with them. Emerald, green, was forgiveness, the preservation of bonds, the stability that allowed humans to continue on after mistakes were made. It was associated with strengthening in the earth. Amethyst symbolized modesty, protection of virtue, and securing chastity. Locks and binders were made with them. Maybe it's a chest, Avina said. What if the 2 parts unspool to reveal contents being protected and preserved? Perhaps, Dulain said. I suspect this is what Nani Gohin referred to as recorder in his treatise on anti-shattering civilization. We're standing on the ruins of one of the great cities, perhaps lost Koilon. Avina swallowed, her eyes flicking to the hard packed earth, and the hole that led down into the library. It was strange down there, floor smooth beneath the dust. It looked like the stone had been poured. They hadn't explored far before finding the artifact sitting amid the collapsed ruin of a table. A recorder? Asked Avina, her mouth suddenly dry. What does it record? Knowledge, said Dulain. He ran a soft finger across the surface, his eyes trembling. Hope burned in them. He plucked his monocle from the dark waistcoat he wore buttoned over his portly frame. He placed the glass lens, attached to a chain of fine gold, before his right eye. He squinted to hold it in place as he leaned forward. You think this will save her, father? Avina asked, trembles racing through her slender body. I can only hope. With a careful caress, he stroked an exposed bit of gold wire. Light blazed from the heart of the recorder. Avina gasped, stepping back 2 steps, her head brushing the sloping roof of the canvas tent. From the top of the device, a beam of golden light somehow made a ball of liquid radiance. It rippled for a moment, then curious symbols appeared on it, glyphs or letters that appeared to be pressable buttons. Old tonal, whispered Dulain as he leaned forward. A precursor to our modern alphabet. See there, the shape of that letter is reminiscent of our G. And there, that's the sweep of that. Can you see the S in it? Avina swallowed, leaning forward. Her heart leaped with joy. This could hold the knowledge restoring Bravin Dashvin's mind. It would revolutionize the burgeoning field of jewel sheen healing. New methods to reverse injuries too severe for Dulain's invention secure, or the ability to fix deformations and congenital defects that topazes didn't affect. My child, I think... Trouble, rumbled Nimad. Avina squeaked. She'd forgotten their hulking bodyguard stood at the tent's entrance. He'd shown no interest in the recorder after setting it on the table. Instead, he stood with the stoic presence of a weathered boulder, all muscle and brutal strength. A faint curl of steam rose off his bare, ebony chest, especially from the deep scars crossing his torso. His green eyes, the bright color contrasting with his dark skin, almost seemed to blaze. Armed men approach. I smell blood on them. Oh dear, Dulaine
Like
said.
current series I'm working on, absolutely. And there's like magic that could just poison people in that system. So, but I haven't actually played around with that yet.
Oh, that's interesting. Magic, sort of a side effect of magic then would be poisoning the system, is what you're basically talking about, right?
Well, there's just a vein of magic that is about toxins in this magic system.
Oh,
So there's places that are kind of blighted and everything in it sort of poisonous and venomous in this world. So they use that, but I haven't used anyone using it as a weapon yet. I probably will. I got a lot of books to write in the series, and at some point I'm sure I'll throw someone in the mix that can do that stuff.
okay. So when you're killing off a character, of course, with the poison, and you're trying to make it look like an accident. So the symptoms you go about to try to mimic natural death symptoms then?
With the case of the assassin that was trying to poison him to keep to keep it from looking like he was assassinated and keep his church from being culpable, because they got to keep up the veneer of benevolence. But in the other case, the guy that used chlorine gas, he did it to disable his target, and he was just playing around and having fun with some new invention. So he kind of really likes killing people, and he likes experimenting with sort of the magic technology. And whenever there's new devices that are created, he wants to try them out and see how they could work in assassinating someone. So there was both him testing out this new method of using chlorine gas combined with a magic item that would let him breathe oxygen, so he wouldn't be affected by it, and then seeing what it did to his target. So it was half an experiment, half him having fun, and half him disabling his target to make it easy for him to kill him.
Okay, well, he sounds like a fun character.
Oh yeah, he's a great character.
Okay, so, well, you've obviously been talking about your assassin. So how does an assassin go about poisoning the characters?
Well, so in this case, the one that poisoned my main character in the first book, the one who used the poison that's supposed to simulate like a sickness, he set up shop as a merchant selling candied fruit, basically. So, outside the military base. It was more like a moment of opportunity. He was just prepared. It was like one of his mini plans. And it just so happened he got the opportunity to sell the character like a poison treat, right? And so they took it home, they ate it. Next day they wake up really sick. You think it's like food poisoning, but you wouldn't make the connection necessarily that was poison, people get sick. This is not, modern times with like good hygiene and understanding of like how bacteria spread. They don't have germ theory. So, people get sick and they don't really understand a lot of the time why people get sick. They haven't made some of those connections. So it's no one made the connection that it was what he ate, but, did him in. So it was just opportunity. This is an assassin who's very prepared. He's got multiple plans. He's just thinking of different ways he can go about his target, and an opportunity arose, and he took it to poison the guy. He also tried to burn his house down in the middle of the night, and he tried to use his romantic rival to like push the romantic rival to try to kill him. He did a couple of different methods.
What's the oddest thing you've researched in relation to poisoning or a character death?
Well, the honest thing I've researched was the history of hysterectomies. And so it was for a character near death. I wanted to see, like, could the character survive this near death? So I didn't end up killing them, but I wanted to just find out, like, what was, because I knew the level of technology in my world, and I was like, is it at the level of technology in our world that this sort of damage could be repaired? And it was. First hysterectomy was performed back in 1820.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, sometimes when you're doing the research, you find out that things are a little older than you thought they were, which is always fun to know. So, how do you usually go about doing your research? Do you have a favorite site?
I just type in Google and just see what Google brings me.
Yeah, that's always fun when you're typing in Google. So, so what kind of research have you done? Poisoning specifically.
I didn't do too much research for the poisons in my first world because it was like I was like making up my own sort of plant one. So I just knew like symptoms of a disease I wanted to mimic. And so there wasn't a lot of research on that. Like I said, I did research for how to make the pot crate, and that led me to how to make chlorine gas and then to use that for an assassin to unleash on my character in a different book. But yeah, not a lot of actual research on poisons too much.
Okay, so do you have a favorite poison?
Not really. I mean, I use them in books, or yeah, they're just not a favorite one. No.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here, and I'll let you tell everybody where they can find you and your books.
All right. Well, I publish under JMD Reid. You can find my books on Amazon. You can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook group called Fantastic Worlds of the Imagination. I'm on Twitter at JMD Reid, and my website is jmd-reid.com.
Okay, so thank you, and thank you for coming here and talking about poisons. It was a pleasure chatting with you today.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you for having me.
And sorry, Words That Kill. We'll be back with another episode at a later date, so please join us then. Bye for now.
Bye.
But as long as I can remember, I wanted to write, I wanted to tell stories, I wanted to share my imagination with the world, and that's why I am publishing. So I'm hoping everyone will want to come on this ride with me.